Welcome to Repat Stories, where we travel the world through the experiences of others. I'm Adrian, your host, and today we're going to be talking to Miss Danielle Dowie. She is a self-publisher, she's an author, and she's a former professional athlete who represented Jamaica. We're going to talk to her about her time in Jamaica and in the US. Hi, Danielle.
Hi, Adrian.
Thanks so much for your time, and I'm really excited for you to share your journey. I think you speak about your life with such joy and enthusiasm, and I'm really excited for you to give us some of that today. So first of all, I want to talk about you growing up in Portland, but before you made a choice for repatriation as an adult, that choice was made for you as a child. Can you tell us more about that? So you were in the UK, right? You're looking at me confused.
Okay. Oh yes. So I actually was I was born in Jamaica, and I went to the UK with my mom at about 2 or 3 months old, and I was living there with her. She actually came back to Jamaica when her father, died. And I was about 3 when I came back. So all I know from that time is that people in my community call me English. And I thought it was because my dad was British. But when I got older, I was like, well, why do people keep calling me English? And my mom was like, oh, because you had a British accent when you came to Jamaica. And I was like, really? And I was like, oh, Mommy, why did you make it go away? And she told me that my sisters teased me until I started speaking Patois very early, like they wouldn't let up. And so yeah, that's a nickname that older people in my community call me, English. And I don't hear it much these days because they're all gone, not just moved away or they're living abroad. But yes, so my mom and my dad, an early memory of mine, it was them arguing about where I'm gonna stay. My father wanted me to come back to England, and my mom was like, no, she's staying with me. And at the time, I'm just going back and forth as the channel of their arguments, tell your mom this, tell your dad this, and going back and forth. And when I got older, I was like, Mommy, why didn't you, let me go to England? When times get hard and you're like, oh, I could be in England right now. And she's like, well, you wouldn't be living with your father. He wanted you to stay with somebody else. He wanted you to stay with your aunt, his aunt, my grandaunt. And my mom was like, she thought about it, and sometimes people they can be so unkind to other people's children. And she's like, no, you're gonna stay here. And so when I thought about it, I was like, that's fair. I wouldn't want to be with a stranger, even though it's family. I've seen and heard of so many situations that I felt my mom made a good decision when she decided if she's gonna send me to England, if I'm not going directly to my dad, then it's a no. And so that's the basis on which she decided to let me grow up in Jamaica.
Yeah. So on the part of growing up in Jamaica, it was you and 3 other siblings, right? You said you're the third of 4.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And so what was that like growing up in Port Antonio?
Okay, well, growing up, my older sisters they were so mean. I'm just kidding. So my older sisters, they used to they're closer in age, and they used to be very close because actually, when my mom took me to England, so I was a baby, I wasn't left. They were left with my grandmother. So they're like, oh, she's the one that got to go to England. So there was this little...
Got you. Tension.
Little tension. So sometimes they would go out, when we would live, because before we settled in Anchovy in Port Antonio, we lived in different rental homes in different communities. And when my sisters would go off on the road, I would be like, oh, I want to come. And they'd be like, no, you get to stay. You stay. And I used to just like sit at home and play with my dolly. I had this huge dolly, like life-size dolly, and I would play with her. And I would just like, when my sisters come back, I'm just like, what happened? You know, like they wouldn't let me go. Like, you're too young, stay, you know. And eventually my elder sister, she went to England. She migrated at the end of fifth form.
Okay.
I was 7, and she still has letters that I used to write her. I used to write her letters, you know, big sister letters from little sister, and my mom used to take me to the post office to mail them. And she showed me one the other day on WhatsApp. She sent me, you know, you wrote me this when you were 7 and 9, and I was like, oh my God.
I know.
Yeah, I still have memory. I remember her. She used to be the big sister that would dress me up, you know, bust me in a wig, like put on wig and hats and tell me how to pose. And this, you know, so she was very much that big sister. And you know, but mostly I did a lot of, you know, playing on my own, because I used to just kind of find enjoyment in just roaming the yard. We had big, huge yards in the country. So where we lived, in one area in New Road, the yard was just so big. Like, I don't even think I've walked all the borders of it. And then when we moved to Anstrovie, it wasn't as developed at the time. So there were lots of open lots. I would just go and climb a guava tree and just spend a good hour in the tree just eating guavas, which I was obsessed with, by the way. It was my favorite fruit.
They're so good.
And
do you like them when they're more ripe or when they're less ripe?
Like
when they're still firm.
I mostly turn.
Yeah.
Okay. But I would eat when it's just ripe, like it's not overripe. I even, as I mentioned, that there was a guava field close to my house, and I was walking with my mom, and of course I saw a ripe guava, and she had to go pick it and I want it, and I was like, "Mommy, see the guava there," and you know, and she went trying to pick the guava for me, and a mongoose just chased her out the bushes, and
that's hilarious.
I'll never forget it, because you know, eventually she still got it for me, and she ran and
she chased the mongoose for the guava?
No.
Oh.
She ran away from the mongoose.
Okay.
But I'm forever thankful for that, because you know, I didn't really think much about it, but I was allowed to roam. Danger was me falling from playing too hard. So that was a lot of that side of things. I used to read a lot as well. So I like to think of summarize my childhood in around reading, writing, and running. My mom, she taught English for over 30 odd years. And so growing up, you know, I would have a lot of questions. I was like, oh, reading ahead in books, and she would be like, oh, look it up if you don't know. So I developed that curiosity and that independence around learning. You know, when I would know something, I would, you know, ask my mom, or I would go and find it up. Like if I can't find it in the encyclopedia, or if I did independent reading and I didn't understand it, I'd be like, I look it up and I still don't get it. So now it's your time.
Right.
You know? But I was cultured that way from my mother.
Okay. So you said as well, or you told me that you going to school, you always did very well. Of course, your mother was a teacher, but also it felt like a waiting game just to go to Titchfield High. Like it was just a matter of time before you went there, because that's the family tradition. And Titchfield High is like the premier public high school in Portland.
Yes. So, you know, we grew up knowing of our, you know, family. Like my sister went to Titchfield. My elder sister, she's the first. My mom's the oldest from my grandmother of 7 children. My mom's the oldest. My big sister, Shanique, is the eldest grandchild from my grandmother. So she went to Titchfield first. Then my cousin Kevron went, and he went to UE, did medicine, and my cousin went to Titchfield, and then he did business, and then it was just one after the other. Yeah. So it's like, I didn't even think about Jesus. I was just like, it was ordained,
right?
And ordained with the work, because I worked very hard. I don't think I learned to study until I got to high school, but I enjoyed school, enjoyed the learning process. I enjoyed my relationship with my teachers, playing with my friends, and being in as many clubs as possible, because I love trips. And so if I could join 4-H before they go on the trips, I would do it. And I did the science club. I was on the junior quiz team for Port Antonio, so I need to contact TBJ so I can get my old clips. But yeah, so I was very active, and I am trying to. Yeah, and I did the speech at graduation too, so I think I was valedictorian for primary school, heading off to high school. Okay. So I was very, very involved, very active, and I also had church, our family is Seventh-day Adventist, so church was a big part of early life for me. I never liked church, but I call it like I was forced to go. Yeah. I had no choice. Like the entire family went, and we would worship together on Sabbath evenings. So on Fridays, approaching sunset, everything would wind down. The house, everything is cleaned up. Everybody bathed up and ready and shine for worship. Cooking is finished from 2-3 o'clock. Everything is being prepared for the day. Your church clothes must be ironed and ready. You must know what you're wearing, and everything. Your hair must comb and ready. And so in the evening at sunset, we would gather in my grandmother's house, and we would worship. We would pray. We would read our lessons from the quarterly, the Seventh-day Adventist quarterly, and we would all have to recite a verse, and we would all have to pray one by one, going around, kneel down and pray. And then after, I remember kind of like when, everybody's done their little, we're kids, so we do our little short prayer, and the adults are praying now. We used to peek around and laugh, and when somebody's doing one of those prayers where they won't stop, we're like looking around like, So those are, the funny memories that I recall, and I remember, for some reason one time we didn't have any verse ready. We all had to recite a verse, and everybody wanted to say Jesus wept, because that's the shortest verse. And I think I said it, and my grandmother was so upset, that was not acceptable. Yeah. So we had to go find a longer verse. And after that, we would have lasco, milk, and sweet potato pudding or toto. By the way, my granny makes the best sweet potato pudding with the merengue on top. I don't see many people make it with the merengue on top.
They have it still in some places, but I think Portland is one of those places. There's this shop along, I don't know what that, or on the way to St. Thomas, so Frigate, Portland.
Oh, really?
There's a shop, it's really popular for that. Hill up on top and and it's they sell different types of pudding there, but it's very popular.
I know one in St. Anne.
No, there's one in St. Thomas. Like,
oh, wow.
You should look it up. Like, on the stretch, that everybody stops at. It's like at a shop. It's on your right-hand side when you're going towards Portland.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so did you start running in primary school, or did you start in high school? Competitive running?
Competitive running started in primary school, like grade 6, I think. And but I've been running and racing everybody from sports days, from kindergarten. Like, I was one of those kids doing potato sack races, pick everything. And in grade 6 though, I would always do really well at sports day, and, earn the top girl for sports day each time. Like, everybody just know Danielle. They want Danielle in their house because Danielle is gonna run everything and win everything. And so in grade 6 though, after sports day, one of the teachers, Mr. McDonald, he recruited us and said, he wants us to train to compete in some inter-parish thing. And I did, and I went and I competed with other primary schools in Portland, and then we represented Portland from that group. And then I told my big sister, not the eldest, no, this is a different, so 2 of them are older than me. So I told my big sister, who was going to Teachil at the time, I was like, I want to do tracks in high school. Let's Teachil have a track team. And she's like, yeah, but they're not that good. Right. And it didn't matter to me. I just wanted to hear yes. Yeah. And I went to Teachil High, and I joined the track team. Like the first day, I'm looking around like, where are they? And I joined them on my first day of practice. This guy was like, oh, what that? Like, shit, because I was really skinny, skinny. And I'm wearing these tights that I can't even fill out because I'm skinny. And this guy's like, she favor birdie. Oh, no. And I was like so embarrassed. And they started calling me birdie. And I hated it so much. I shouldn't even tell you. But eventually, I would do really well. So they would be like, oh, and they would never leave the name alone. Oh my gosh. But I was highly, welcomed on the team, and the school and my teammates supported me. And so it was a really cool experience. And, and working out at Titchfield, because of Seventh-day Adventist practice, I wasn't able to attend track meets because they were on Saturdays. And I remember my first track meet outside of Monday, Tuesday, which Eastern Champs is always the Monday, Tuesday before Ash Wednesday. And I would train for 2 years just to go to Eastern Champs. And then in 9th grade or 3rd form, they had a camp at Excelsior High School. We camped at Excelsior High School grounds for Eastern Champs. And I remember, sneaking away. I didn't tell my mom about Friday, Saturday part of it. She just knew I was going away for a week, which included Friday and Saturday. And so on the big Friday, because Gibson was 2 days, I think, at the time, we ran, or in the morning, I don't remember, but we ran, my teammates and I ran, and we got second in our relay race. And we were on TV, so we got second, so, some sort of featuring happened. And my mom, people in Port Antonio were like, isn't that Miss Taylor's daughter? And so they were talking about Titchfield, and so people in Portland were obviously paying attention. And they saw me, they recognized me, and they went back and they told my family, "Me see your daughter on TV." And they go to my grandmother, "Me see your granddaughter on TV." And my granny was furious. Oh, no. My mom, though, got to her head. She loved the attention. She loved the excitement. People were like, "Make the girl run, man. Right. God not gonna stop." His talent is him gear the talent. And so, my mom eventually, started letting me go to track meets, and that was the beginning of a new world for me. I was able to know I'm being recruited. People are like, come to my school. They're talking about this Titchfield girl, and I think that year I went to the character trials, and I finished 4th. And they're like, "Who is this girl from this school? Nobody knows."
And at that time, this was 400 flat or 400?
400 flat.
Okay.
Yes, so I finished 4th at the character trials, and people are paying attention to this Titchfield girl. And so eventually I met the Wolmer's coach, Mr. Carr, and we started dialogue, and my coach at Titchfield introduced me to the Andrews coach, Mr. Bolt, and it really came down to Wolmer's and Andrews, because as I said to many coaches, I'm not going to leave country school and go on next country school. So if I'm leaving the country, I'm definitely going to the city, you know. So,
fair. Totally fair. Okay. So you chose Wolmer's, and when you choose Wolmer's, you're coming in, they wanted you to repeat a grade. But you're like, no, why am I repeating a grade? And then the principal says to you, but look at your grades. You're like, outstanding. Why would they want you to repeat a grade? How did that go? And also, coming into Titchfield, what was the transition like? Sorry, coming into Wolmer's, what was the transition like coming from Titchfield to Wolmer's? Hi.
Okay. So really the track coach wanted me to repeat, not necessarily Wolmer's, because Wolmer's at the time didn't have the decision to decide whether or not I need to repeat or not. But I knew I wasn't repeating. That was my non-negotiable. But I think it's a standard thing for athletes to repeat when they transfer, so the schools kind of can get maximum time out of them. But I wasn't interested in that. And I did very well academically at Titchfield. And so I knew it was just no, you know. For how well I did in school, repeating was just no.
Yeah.
And so I told Mr. Carr, like, look, I'm not repeating. And he was, you know, he wanted me to repeat. So when I met Mrs. Montague, the principal at Wolmer's, and she looked at my report and she's like, Mr. Carr, are you mad? And so I actually transferred from third form straight into fourth form at Wolmer's Girls. And it was a culture shock, right? Because at Titchfield, I was like, you know, I like to think I you know, it was my playground. It was my playground. I could give trouble. I could get away with a lot. And so when I went to Wolmer's, my new foster mom I was boarding with, Auntie Winsome, she was like, well, this is not Titchfield, you know. So you're going to have to, you know, tighten up and you know, they're serious. If you do something, you'll get punished and suspended. So I was just like, yeah. And so I go to Wolmer's, and my first thing is like, you know, the anthem is playing and the whole school is freezing. I was like, what is this? And then, Madame Ndala is coming, and everyone's like, oh, Madame is coming, fix up. And I was like, scoffing at everything. And then my new classmates and schoolmates were like, hi, Danielle, I don't know these girls yet, right? They just know of me. And they're coming to hug me and scream. Like, I was like, what is going on? Why are these people so happy and huggy and cheery? And so it definitely was a culture shock. And I was, ingrained soon. And, before you know it, Madame is coming, and I'm like, guys, Madame is coming. And, transformed into, Wolmerian style, refined, reformed, a young lady in the making. And it definitely helped to shape who I am today. And I'm really happy for the experience both schools offered me. And Wolmer's, actually, I spent 1 year living with Auntie Winsome, and then I went over and lived with Mr. and Mrs. Carr, who took the reform up a notch. They definitely, we had some really nice practices. Like at first, I was, introduced to my table etiquette. I had no choice. I'm coming from Portland, and I like to. I grew up eating with my one fork, and Auntie Miss said, no, we use knife and fork in this house, and so I had to learn my proper etiquette, which I resisted at first. Let me put that out there. I was like, sure, can't bother, and before I know it, I'm like, Mrs. Knife. And we're at the dinner table, we're having conversation, no phones at the table, and it was not without drama, right? Because I I would have my little skirts and my little shorts that I would want to wear in the house. And, Mrs. Carr is like, where are you going in that? And, when I would wash them and hang them on the line, they would just disappear. And I'm just like frantic, like my favorite skirt. So definitely had a lot of my molding in terms of, growing out of certain habits or just kind of learning new things that's going to take you to the next level. I think a lot of that started to accelerate at Wolmer's, and that's also when I started to look to, leaving to go overseas through track and field. Because, when I mentioned before I left Titchfield, I finished 4th, which you have to finish top 2 to make the Jamaica team. And the first year at Wolmer's, I, switched my event to the 300 hurdles at the time, 400 hurdles, 300 hurdles. And I made my first Jamaica team. And I went to the Character Games. I won that year, and as I kept making Jamaica teams from there on, and that's how I got my full scholarship to go to the US.
Amazing. So you said that you were recruited in by a Bahamian coach who was in Texas. Is that right?
And no. So my first recruit. For college overseas was this Bahamian lady, Pauline Davis Thompson, I think. I hope I'm remembering her name correctly. And I was so excited. She was working at Tennessee.
Okay.
She left that school before I was ready to go overseas. And by that time I had done other research and I, fell in love with Texas. Mainly because, my track idol, Melanie Walker, 400 hurdles. Melanie went to Texas. Sonia Richards. So cool. Yes, she is. She's awesome. Sonia Richards. And so a lot of talented Jamaican born and Jamaican quarter-milers went through Texas. And the coach, Bev Kearney, was still there. I was like, oh, this is perfect. Yeah. I was like, oh my God, like, I want her to coach me. And we had like a super freshman team. Like all of us went to a World Youth Championship, representing different countries. Yeah. And I think we had about 9 freshmen come in that year, and 7 of us represented our country at the World Youth Championship. And I think about 3 or 4 of us were medal winners, including me. So it was a really cool team. And the funny thing is, we took a random picture with Team USA. Like we were just walking in Italy and we ran into Team USA and we were like, just a random Jamaica USA selfie. Yeah. And later on, we went to college.
Yeah. And it was you guys?
Yeah, it was my teammate. So we didn't know each other at the time.
That's so crazy.
We didn't know each other at the time. We just took a random Jamaica USA selfie.
Yeah.
And we were like, wait a minute, that's Shanae, that's Alexis, that's me. And so we were all in the picture.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's my future roommate, and I didn't know at the time.
I have chills. I have chills. No, that's so crazy. And did you guys end up doing, like, how was NCAA? Like, were you like dominating at that time? Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, so my NCAA experience was pretty intense. My first year, I made the finals at nationals as a freshman. I finished 6th, and it was a big deal. They're like, oh, it was like, I don't think many freshmen made it. Yeah. I was like one of the only freshmen.
Like I literally have chills in my head. Like it's so weird. Yeah.
Yes, and so it was pretty cool. And college was just for me another level of growth, acceleration. I went to college with. I actually left Jamaica. Went to college with a wig on my head.
Yeah.
And, took my ID picture. I was one of the only people who were happy with their ID picture because I was really, really cute. Like, hey. And I think one of the first classes I took, my academic counselor, Tina Kine, she was like, "Oh, Danielle, I really think you should take this Black Power class." And I was like, "Tina, why? Is it because I'm Black?" And she's like, "Well, all the Black athletes are taking it. It's an easy A." I was like, "I don't want to take it." And then I go out and then I see this Nigerian girl on the team, Bev Owoyele, right? And she was like, "Oh yeah, Dr. Moore is cool. Then you'll take that class." I was like, okay, Bev took it, and all the girls that the Nigerian girls on the team took it. So I was like, all right, let me take a chance at this class. I took Black Power class and cut off my hair. I went big chop, I took off the weave. I was like, I'm done with this, and
like was it the actual class that like
it was a catalyst. It was
okay.
a catalyst. I was learning. In that class they were talking about skin bleaching and Jamaica, and people were like, "You Jamaican, right? Is it true people bleach their skin in Jamaica?" And I'm so embarrassed. I'm just like, and I would go to these Black history classes, and they would talk about Marcus Garvey, like, and his role in the Black Power movement, and people would be like, "Danielle, is this true?"
How I know.
And I'm embarrassed because we learned about Marcus Garvey as a national hero, but we didn't learn about
what he did.
All that he did. Yeah. And I didn't learn about it until I'm in the college in college in US.
Yeah,
so I'm just like starting to like do my research now and read his books and look up stuff, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe we weren't taught this. And eventually I made the decision to, grow my hair out, grow out the chemical, the perm. I was afraid, because hair has been a big subject, even though I'm brown, a brown Jamaican woman, like my family would be like, "You're brown, but your hair nigga," so.
Oh my gosh.
Jamaicans don't play.
Rough,
So I was like, it took a while to like, embrace all of me. And another thing too, in Jamaica at the time, before I left, people would be like, she toughy, referring to my muscular body.
Right.
And sometimes I would just feel self-conscious, a little insecure about it. And I go to the US and all my teammates are like, shorts. Out there, shorts, out there. All the muscles.
The student athletes wear their shorts, okay?
Yes.
They do not care.
And the swimmers, the girls on the swim team would be like, "Can we have your legs, please?" And I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So, I left Jamaica being teased for having a muscular body. And then I come to the US and people are like, "Can I have your body, please?"
Right.
And so that was also a big, factor in me starting to accept the body that I have, the hair that I have, and just chilling and loving and accepting who I am. And when I came back to Jamaica later on, everybody was like ready for fit girl bodies. No. So, but when I was leaving, not so much.
Right. So 2010 to 2014 is when you were in college, and you spoke a little bit about some of the courses you took, but your major was in nutritional science, right?
Yes.
So how was that choice? Like, why didn't you choose like a major that was like psychology or African American studies, which is very popular with athletes? Why did you choose nutritional science?
Well, I at first definitely wanted to do something in the sciences. I was thinking about med school or computer science. Computer science actually was my first choice, but because of some technicalities, I wasn't prepared to like teach myself Java.
Kids.
Yeah.
Don't run away from the programming languages, okay? When they tell you to do it, just do it.
Yeah. I wasn't prepared to teach myself Java. And then I was like really just wanted to run. But I also wanted to make sure that I chose a major that when I'm finished running, I would want to do something with it. So eventually, by that time I started I realized that med school was not going to work because I was like, too not into blood and stuff. So I was like, okay, that's not going to work. And, straight bio, I was like, what's the point? And I actually wanted to do biomed engineering, but it was like 5 years. And I was like, no, I'm not doing an extra year for nobody.
Yeah.
And so I thought that pre-med nutrition was the perfect balance for me. I was able to do my core med school classes and have light nutrition courses that were fun and relevant to the career that I was choosing. Sports. I made every effort to intern with sports dietitian and the team dietitians, and I would have my core classes. So if I did change my mind, I want to go to med school. Eventually, I learned about public health, and I was lining up to go into that field. And but I just, I had a great time with the course. It was really fun. I did a little cooking, food science type cooking, and a research experience. So I got a mixture of. And I made sure every elective that I took was far from my area. So I took piano classes, I took acting classes. I tried to get as much balance and all-roundedness as possible. And I took those Black history classes. I was really interested in those type of stuff. And from I got to Texas, my very first time in Texas, I was at the mall. I went to the mall on the bus, and the coach was like, how did Danielle get to the mall? I was like, Danielle reads.
Right.
Yeah, Danielle went online and Googled and found
that's a great point,
yes.
because I don't mean it in a bad way with a lot of the student athletes, because I don't know if it's because they're taken everywhere and they get a lot of stuff, they just don't have initiative.
Yes.
But it's not like, I don't know, they literally get brought everywhere, training, whatever, they pretty much just have to. So I don't know if that's why it's surprising that you found your way somewhere.
It was. The coach actually said everybody just waits for us to take them places. And I was like, I don't have time for that. It was Coach Brimmer, and I was like, Coach Brimmer, now I gotta go. I need to go to Walmart. I looked up the bus. All I have to do is swipe my college ID. It's free. And I'm at Walmart. Yeah. I mean, it takes 30 minutes to get there, but still. I got there. Yeah. And when my teammates are like, oh, how are we going to get here? I'm like, guys, the bus is free. The bus takes us. And the bus is super reliable in Austin. That was one thing I loved. It was pretty, and we had to take bus to class. That's how big our campus was. And of course, we would be super cool with the bus drivers, most of them are Black, and we just had a ton of jokes. There's one guy who would literally, if there was a Black person missing the bus, and he would stop us anywhere, and I'm like, come on.
And most of them not doing that. Most of them will drive. If you're not at the bus stop at the time, they will leave you.
He looked out for us, and we would have these inside jokes. About it. And Austin was a very cool city. It felt like my American home. And I kind of at one point I was like almost behaving like I'm Texan. Cowgirl boots and the burnt orange dress for football games. Oh my gosh. Brisket was my national meal. I was fully indoctrinated in Texas life. And keep Austin weird. I used to take the bus on South Congress and just explore. Made it a point of duty to explore the city. It's also known as the city of music, live music. So we would go to restaurants and just explore.
I love that. So you got to a point now where you ended up in California. You graduated. You ended up in California, but you were also having some injuries. What was that transition like? And what happened before you came back to Jamaica?
Okay, so when I graduated, my senior year at Texas was plagued with injuries. In fact, I made the Jamaican World Championship team my junior year, my third year of college. And
bro, she's a big deal. Like, who is doing that?
And I went to Jamaican trials and I placed second.
Yeah.
The top 3 makes the team. I placed second, ran a personal best to get on the team. And my trainer says to me, Danielle, I had really bad shin splints.
Oh.
And she said, Danielle, you can't go. Like, if you go to the World Championships, you won't be able to walk in September. And I was like, I made the World Championship.
Right.
I'm going. Thank you very much. And so I go to the World Championship, and I didn't perform as well as I wanted, which at the time had nothing to do with the shin splints. I just,
But you were in the final.
No. I wasn't
You
in the
didn't
final. No.
Okay.
I actually didn't advance from the first round.
Okay.
And so my experience was short there, but when I came back to Texas, so said, so done. I could not walk.